So I found a lump in my breast one night. I had never had a lump in my breast before. And so I didn't think much of it. I have no family history. But I decided to get it checked anyway. And it wasn't shortly after, about a week later, I found out that I had breast cancer. So it was a whirlwind. From that moment, I stopped working. I went in for surgery. I had chemo. I had radiation. And it was very much a line in the sand of my life that I was all consumed by cancer treatment from that moment on.
What was your prognosis?
I was stage 2, grade 3, which means when young women are diagnosed with breast cancer, I was 31, it is likely very aggressive, which is interesting because, I'm not entitled to mammograms until I'm 40, but I was diagnosed at 31. So I've met a lot of young women who have had extremely aggressive cancer at a young age. And it takes you by surprise, for sure. Being 31, I had never done a self-exam in my life. And then finding out you have breast cancer is, it's overwhelming, it's shocking, it's numbing. There's just so many emotions to feel.
And once you learned this, when did you decide to share the news with people closest to you?
So I guess I don't know if it's a funny story, but I had planned a benign bash for myself because I was awaiting results, and I was extremely anxious about it. And I was like, oh, I'm going to have this benign bash. I'm going to invite my family and friends. It's going to be so fun.
What's a benign bash?
Well, I was hoping my test would come back benign. And so, if wishful thinking helps or, I was just all in. I had sent out evites to my family and friends. I'm going to have a benign bash. And then it did not come back benign. It came back malignant. And so then I went through, having to tell everyone that, I had cancer at 31. And it was excruciating. I started with my parents. I called them and it was awful. Like, everyone cries. And after my parents, I think I called my brother and sister. And then I decided to text everyone because I was just emotionally at my capacity. I couldn't handle anything else. And so, that day is, definitely burned into my mind as a very difficult day.
Yeah. What is it like for you to share that and have somebody on the recipient side? Almost you become supporting them while they're hearing the news.
Yes. You hear a lot of tears. And I think everyone's innate instinct is to try and make me feel comforted. And so whether that's at least statements, like at least you caught it early, at least you live near a good cancer center, at least, I think a lot of those statements are invalidating. And then, you kind of have to listen to people crying and you're kind of trying to comfort them, but also grieve your own emotions and your life and experiences. So it is a lot. It's a lot for sure.
What would you have wanted on the other side of that phone?
So being through, going through the experience, I really would have wanted, I think if anyone is diagnosed with cancer, what is important is to ask open-ended questions. So rather than saying like, oh, you got this, it's all going to be okay. Like you're going to find a silver lining, like, how are you doing? How do you feel? Or, validating emotions like that must be really hard. I'm so sorry you're going through that. That sounds like a lot. And so rather than, blanketing it as you're going to be fine, just asking honestly how they're doing.
And when you say validating your emotions, do you mean saying, just meeting you where you're at and saying, it's okay to be angry. It's okay to get mad, Sara?
Yes. And I think at the beginning, I was so angry because I worked hard to build this life. I was only 31. I'm putting all these steps together, building this life. I got married. I started a great job. And that was taken away from me in a moment. And so I was angry, like, why me? Why did this happen to me? It's not in my family, like of everyone in the world to get it. Why did I get it? And so I was very angry. And I needed the place to feel safe enough to express those emotions, to go through the motions of grief and experience all of the steps of grief. And you can't just skip to the end and be happy.
And I often see on social media, people posting things like, kick cancer's ass, F cancer, you got this, you're a warrior. Did you get those too?
Yes, for sure.
And what's your reaction when you see people posting that?
So personally, I'm not a fan of war rhetoric when it comes to cancer. And I think the biggest thing for me is when someone passes from cancer or dies of cancer and they say they lost their battle to cancer. I think that gives cancer a lot more power than it deserves. So I mean, in the community, we often joke and say, if someone passes of cancer, at best it's a duel because cancer dies at the same time as the person. So let's not give cancer the power and say there's just so many other things to say. So
Like what? Give me something.
again, validating people's experiences. You can say F cancer, like that sucks.
That's safe?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Bumper stickers, I got it. Okay, so F cancer, what else?
Yeah, I mean, just get in that uncomfortable space with them. So again, I got a lot of like, let me know what I can do's. And rather than saying, let me know what I can do, just pick something small that you can do. Even if it's just, hey, when is your treatment? Write down their date and then send them a little text on the day. Hey, I'm thinking of you. I'm aware you have treatment. I'm aware this must be a difficult day for you. And that just like is such a little thing to do that doesn't cost anyone anything, but lets them know like, hey, I'm in this space with you and you're not alone.
How much is too much support?
I mean, I don't think I had an experience that was too much support. I would say during chemo, that's when everyone really rallies for you. And it was almost like I couldn't text everyone back because everyone was like, hey, how's it going? And then after chemo, it was pretty radio silent. And so chemo seems to be the big thing. I lost all my hair and I look very different. And so that is a big thing that people rally behind you. But I think people need support post chemo and especially post active treatment. That's when you hit the ground running and try to rebuild your life. And so support post chemo is very important.
So it's almost as though and I don't mean to compare this, but I'm thinking when you lose a loved one, when someone dies, everyone comes to the funeral, everyone floods in, but the grieving, I find in my own experience, happens after, right? And it's almost, that's when the radio silence happens at the same time. And not to compare the two experiences, but the emotions and the journey that is sounds similar. So everyone piles in as something active is happening. But that's not necessarily, which I'm learning from you now, is when you need us.
That is exactly true. So I've in the cancer community, I learned from people that they said post-treatment is much more difficult than treatment itself. And so I was scared coming to the end of my treatment, like, okay, what is this going to be like? But it's because you're in such survival mode during, surgery, chemo, radiation, that post-treatment, you just start to realize, okay, what just happened to me? What happened to my life? And how do I go from here? How do I heal? And so that's why I co-founded a charity for young women who have had cancer called the Bloom Club. And it's just to get together with other young women who have had cancer. We all get it. I mean, we're all actually, a lot of us are in the same stages like of hair growth and everything like that. So every time we meet up, we're like, oh, your hair looks great. And yeah, it's just very healing to be around people who get the experience of cancer and grief.
How are you doing now?
I am doing well. So I am still in treatment. I will be in treatment it's 10 years post chemo. So I still go to the cancer center often. I have, meetings with my oncologists and appointments. But considering all of that, I would say I'm doing very well.
What type of support do you need now?
So I get a lot of my support from the Bloom Club, as well as my family. My parents have been really great to me. And so that has been support that is ongoing, that didn't stop after treatment.
What is one thing, I often think when people come into our studio, there's something you want to get across, and I just want to make sure we didn't miss the mark. What did you want to get across today?
I think that just if anyone is experiencing grief, whether it's cancer or not, I would like someone to get in the discomfort with that person rather than trying to make them feel better. You can't fix what they're going through, and I think you have to be okay with not being able to fix that. But if you can get in the mud with them and get dirty and say, hey, I will sit with you in this place, and I can't fix you, but I'll be here, I think that would be the most important thing.
Sara, thank you so much. And I'm glad to hear that you have no signs, no evidence of disease. We're dropping the word survivor, correct?
Yes, I like to be called Cancer Rebel, or you can call me Ned. I say call me Ned because it's no evidence of disease.
Can I call you Sara?
Sarah, sure. Yeah.
Okay, great. Sara, thank you so much for coming in today. Sara Machnik currently has no evidence of disease. You can also call her Ned if you see her in the community. She lives in Amherstburg. We want to hear your thoughts about this. Did this help you better understand how we can support people in our community? You can text us at 519-984-2051.